So I'm an airline pilot for Spirit Airlines. I've been there for 8 years. I'm also an instructor pilot there. You can see it on the picture here on the far left side. In addition to that, I own and operate the 142 Flight Academy that you see over here, One Step Prep Academy. It's a 142 school. We'll get a little bit more into that, what that means, but essentially it's type ratings. A couple other things about me. Munoz Capital is a real estate portfolio that I own and operate. My wife and I have several duplexes throughout Florida with the plan to acquire many more throughout Texas and Florida. At the point right now is what we're looking. On the far right side, you'll see a picture of me. I'm also a competitive bodybuilder, and I'm actually training for a show next year in May, which a lot of this will tie into some of the mindset conversation and what have you. Unfortunately, right now on the cruise, my diet has kind of gone to hell for the plans of the prep. But with that being said, we get back to port tomorrow, and here's my plan for the next 2 days, if it helps any one of you. To lose 6 pounds in 2 days. Here's effectively what I'm going to do. I'm going to get off the ship, and I'm going to spend the next couple of days doing 30 minutes of cardio in the morning, a zero-carb diet for 2 days, and a gallon of water. If any of you do this, I guarantee you're going to lose 6 pounds in 2 days, and then we'll be back on track to look something a little more shredded like that. In addition to that, I've written several books. One of them here is a Type Rating Playbook to Success. It's a book that's very generic. It's not aircraft or type specific, but it essentially goes through what you would expect throughout a type rating, what the ground school looks like, what the oral portion looks like, what the check ride looks like. And then in addition to that, flight plan, which is very much focused on finance, mindset, if you will, which is some of the topics we're going to get into here today. And also communication. And then finally, the AX3 certification program, which is basically a train the trainers or a fundamentals of instruction type program that we offer at the 142 Academy. All right, so how many of you have seen this before? This is basically an excerpt from a passenger safety briefing card, right? And I think this image here, it has a lot of life lessons that we can apply. And if we look closely, essentially we have a lady who's pulling the oxygen masks, right, from the passenger service unit, bringing it down, placing it on herself, and then finally in the far right picture, helping her child or whomever that may be right next to her, right? And so what I want to illustrate about this illustration in particular is that it very much shows us that we have to be selfish to be selfless. In other words, we have to take care of ourselves before we can take care of anybody else. We really cannot give what we don't have, if that makes sense. And ultimately, what I like to define and think of when I see people in life in general is we tend to have a few different types of people. First would be selfish. Let's just talk about the selfish person. And you may sit there and think, I'm not the selfish type. But I guarantee you if I were to sit here and take a picture of all of us and then somehow put it on the screen, you would pretty much probably first look to who in that picture first. Probably yourself, right? And if you look good in the picture, it's a great picture. But if you don't look good in the picture, take it again, take it in. We got to take the picture again, okay? So we all tend to have these tendencies. And ultimately, in terms of mindset, what we find is that selfish mindsets or selfish character traits and significance are not very compatible. I don't think that to be selfish and be significant is very much two compatible words, so to speak. And so that's the first type, is selfishness. Then we have those that are greedy. Okay, let's talk about that. Greedy would basically be, I put on my mask and I'm getting oxygen, but it's not enough oxygen. So I'm just going to take the mask of the person sitting next to me and the other person sitting next to me because the one mask isn't enough, right? And so that would be the type of person that we would say or categorize as greedy. Then we have the selfless. Imagine for a moment that this was a mother and her child, and she thinks, you know what, I'm going to abandon myself and I'm going to save my child. I'm going to go ahead and place their mask on first, right? So I'm going to share with you, let's think for a second if that were to happen, okay, if that were to actually play out that way. Saturday, as soon as we get back in port tomorrow, Saturday, I fly for Spirit. I'm going to go fly to St. Croix. This is what's on my schedule. At 11 a.m., I'll be blasting off on my way down to St. Croix. I've done the flight enough times, I could tell you, we're probably going to go at 37,000 feet. It's 2 hours and 43 minutes. Imagine if we're halfway through the flight, and all of a sudden, we have some rapid depressurization. And this plays out where that mother or that father turns to the person next to them and puts on their mask first and completely abandons himself. What do you think would probably happen to them? Yeah, you'd probably go hypoxic, right? Because they don't have oxygen themselves. I mean, they'd probably be okay momentarily until they go hypoxic, at which point that's it, because they don't have, so they can't give. And so ultimately, the point I'm getting to, and the way I try to lead my life in all aspects, is to be in a position or a place of having so that you can give. And that's true of knowledge, having knowledge so you can instill it or deploy it on your students. Monetary means and financial means, having it so you can give it. I think very much being in a place of having is the only place really where you can act on to give. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to assume for just the time that we're here, a little bit of a selfish approach so that we can ultimately be selfless. We're going to work on our mindset and our mental fortitude so we can ultimately go out and deploy the things you're going to learn here today in a selfless approach. All right? All right. Perfect. Okay, you heard me say selfish and significance. These two words don't go together, at least not in my opinion. Oh. Spotty. All right, here we go. Okay, we're going to keep it here. Okay, so making a decision. Let's talk about this for a moment. How do you build a mental fortress, or how do you succeed in anything? Okay, in my opinion, okay, the first thing is to make a decision to abandon mediocrity. Now, I know that sounds, well, I can make a decision to do that. Anybody could do that, right? Well, this is what I love about the gym and the fitness, and it doesn't lie. You either put in the time and get the results, or you don't. There's really nothing you can do to try to circumnavigate the end result. And a lot of times when we talk about a mental fortitude mindset, even mental health, what we were just talking about, do I need help? Do I need help? And the short answer is really everybody needs help. But because personal development and growth and mindset and communication and everything we're talking to it's very much a soft skill. And so how do you really measure that? With what metrics do you measure it? And the thing with personal development that I found is ultimately not only are you the person doing the measuring, but you're also the thing that is measured. And because the measurer is also measuring that thing that yourself that you're measuring, we tend to lie to ourselves a little bit and say, no, I don't think I really need the help, or I don't really think I need to improve. Or maybe you say you do, but do you really mean it? Are you really willing to take the steps that are actually necessary? So when I say abandon mediocrity mindset, what that really means is, are you prepared to do everything that it takes? And are you willing to do what it takes in terms of investment of time, energy, resources to be able to accomplish whatever it is you're looking to do? Abandon self and embrace servanthood. Okay, so let's look at this for just a second. When I say abandon self and embrace servanthood, imagine for a moment the person that's sitting there with the PSU servant, the mask that drops down, and they just take care of themselves. They put on their mask, and they don't look to do anything or help anyone or take care of that child next to them. They don't look to do anything for anyone. How significant are you really going to be as a whole in a marketplace, particularly here for most of us that are entrepreneurs, when it's just a self-serving concept? And I'll say that, someone asked, how many of you have had prior businesses or any business that has failed? And I have. I've had 2 prior that have failed, and I can say definitively they have failed because they were very much self-focused. They were not businesses built on the servanthood of anybody. They were really businesses built for me to try to make a buck. And I realized that and said, you know what, it's the wrong motive from which to do anything. I'm just going to stick to what I like to do, which is fly airplanes and train people. And then from there, it developed into the academy, which was definitively developed in the servanthood of others. So for the second point, I would definitely say that's all about that mindset of having to give and abandoning the thought that I'm just going to put on my mask for myself. And then the abandonment of perfectionism. So one of my pet peeves is analysis paralysis. I'm going to think, I'm not going to act. I'm just going to think about this. Should I do it this way? Should I do it that way? When we do the email blasts, my team says, should we put the click to or the call to action button? Should it be this color? Should it be that color? I say, just make it any color and send it and stop asking. Just make it blue. Amazon makes it orange. Screw it. Make it orange. Make it some color and send it out. And then we're going to see what the open rate is, and we'll see what the click-through rate is, and then we'll figure it out. Maybe Right Rudder Marketing will help me with what color it should be, okay? But the point I'm getting to is that I don't really look for perfectionism. What I look for is progress and speed. And by the time somebody else is done analyzing what they should do, I've already done 10 things and figured out which one didn't work. So speed to market is what I would get to. And also that thought that I think really perfectionism is a word for procrastination. I think we like to call it perfectionism because it sounds better. But ultimately, I would say it's probably just a word for procrastination. So seek improvement, seek progress over perfection is what I'm getting to with this. And this applies in business. It applies in life. It applies in fitness. And the first bodybuilding show I ever did, I looked at my physique and my wife said, what can you really improve? I mean, you're lean, you're shredded, you're this, you're that. And I'm like, if you really look at this shoulder and that shoulder, this one's not as symmetrical, this lat doesn't extend the way this one does. There's always some little thing that you can improve upon. And when I first met John and Martha King, back in about 2015 timeframe, they told me something that has always stuck, which is your business is essentially an ice sculpture, and you are chipping away at it. And there's always going to be some other thing that you can chip at, but ultimately, in the end, you'll have a masterpiece. And I think the masterpiece, you don't make a masterpiece to just hang it on your bedroom wall and only you get to enjoy it. You put it out there so everybody else can enjoy it. And so know that there's always another level and there's always a better improvement to that masterpiece. And ultimately, when you're doing it for somebody other than yourself, and you're placing that servanthood above self. I think that's very much what they stand for, hence what we learned about using the terms you this morning, etc. I think that goes a long way in how motivated you'll be to do anything. Embracing the journey. So, this sounds cliche. Just embrace the journey. The view at the top is not all it's made out to be. The journey is really what builds the character and all these things. Well, I very much agree with that. I think that there's a lot to be said about that. But, what I would very much tell you is that when it comes to mindset and mental fortitude, the hardest person to lead, I believe, is yourself. And it's tough to really be effective leading anybody else if you don't lead yourself well. And part of leading yourself well is embracing the journey. That improvement takes intentionality. Climbing is uphill. You're not going to slide to success. You're very much going to climb there. And there's several things which we'll go through here. I have a couple points on that in terms of things we can utilize to climb and be more intentional in our uphill battle. But embracing the fact that it is an infinite battle, and it's not something that you're just going to reach the summit and think, I've succeeded and I'm done. It's very much another level and a self-discovery of what's the next thing that I can do here. Interestingly enough, just for some quick trivia, how old do you think I am? By the way, I've been asking this question to many people on the ship throughout the time that we've been here. How old would you say I am? Just a guess. 39? Man, I got to shave. 37? 33? 43? 43. Okay. All right, we're definitely shaving. I'm 31. All right, I'm 31. Started flying when I was 13. But the reason I'm sharing that with you is because Spirit hired me at 24. And I'm out here flying this Airbus 320, and I always thought this is all I ever want to do. I mean, I would get down and pray on my knees and say, I just want to fly big airplanes and be an airline pilot. And here I am at 24, and then I'm looking out the window one day. I'm at 38,000 feet. We're cruising off to LAX, to Los Angeles, and I'm looking out the window and I'm thinking to myself, I'm here. I made it. And then it dawns on me, I have like 40 years of this left. Like. What the hell am I going to do here for 40 years? This can't be it. And then I'm like, okay, so I upgrade to captain. Okay, that's cool. But then instead of looking out this window, I just get to look out that window. And instead of doing my, it's a side stick. We don't have the control column. Rather than use a side stick in my right hand, I get to use it in my left hand, So, okay, so let's say I upgrade in 3 years, which is the average upgrade time. So then what? I have 37 years of looking out of that window. Then what can you do? Well, then you can be a line check airman. Okay, so now I don't get to sit in any seat. I get to sit in the jump seat and then observe everybody else fly. And then rather than look through one window, I'll look through both windows. But the point I'm getting to is it's like, okay, there has to be more. I'm here, I'm doing it, there has to be more. And that's ultimately why we have the school. Because I found, I'm very fortunate, I'm blessed, I don't have to choose. I'm going to fly or I'm going to teach. I get to do both. And flying really is actually very relaxing because the phone doesn't work at 38,000 feet. So nobody can call and the emails don't come in and all these great things. But the point I'm getting to is that what more can there be that would develop me further and most importantly, be impactful? And I think education and instructing as a whole, we all understand that it's very impactful in an exponential way. I would say flying is impactful, because I get somebody from Vegas to Fort Lauderdale so they can enjoy a Liberty of the Seas cruise on vacation. But I don't really have that direct impact on someone's life the way we do in instructing. And so ultimately, I would say that in and of itself is very much an abandonment of self into servanthood. And anyone really in this audience would understand that very well, because ultimately what we do in the world of training is essentially impact people. And I guarantee you all have lessons from your prior instructors that you take with you throughout all of life. Just like John and Martha King impacted me with the statement of that ice sculpture. Bruce over here has a great saying: if you're green, you're growing. If you're ripe, you're rotten. So stay green and stay growing. And these little things stay with us and keep us on our journey. A you versus you mindset. This is really big. I don't really look to my competitor flight schools, I'll tell you that. As a 142 Academy, there's other schools out there. I can name them off the top. But I don't really let me see what their reviews are. Let me see what other students are saying about them. What are people saying on Reddit or on YouTube or on Yelp? What do they do wrong? What do they do? All I do is focus on my ice score. I just stay in my lane. I do what I can do. It's the same thing in the competitive bodybuilding. I could look at the competitors coming on the stage, but ultimately, there's a really famous picture of Michael Phelps in a race when he's about to win it. You see the number 2 athlete that's about to finish. Phelps finishes first. You see the number 2 competitor looking at him, and then you see Phelps looking at the finish line. And so the point is, you keep your eye on the finish line, you get to the finish line. And if you keep your eye on your competitor, ultimately you come in second. And with a company like One Step Prep, one being in the company title, I don't think coming in second is very good. And that being said, we focus on ourselves, we prioritize ourselves in the same way that I prioritize me so I can go and lead our team, so we can lead our instructors and they can ultimately lead our students. I do kind of take on that mindset of the original Southwest CEO, taking care of your own, and they end up going out and taking care of your customers, and that's ultimately what we do at the Academy. All right, 3 steps to progress, and I'm going to start to move relatively quick so we can wrap it up, but awareness, admittance, action. These are the 3 A's. I live by these: awareness, admittance, action. How do I make a change in the positive direction? 1, I need to be aware that I even need a change, because if I'm not aware, I can't take action. But furthermore, if you are aware and you don't admit it, which has everything to do with the ego. Let's say you're aware that you need to improve, but you don't actually admit that you need to improve. So now you get stuck in this circle of either ignorance or arrogance. And on any day, I would rather be ignorant than arrogant. Arrogance basically suggests that I don't need to improve. And this happens a lot, by the way, and I can tell you in the airlines, because you effectively give somebody a title of line check airman, and they think that their title is sufficient for them to not have to improve anymore. They think that I already have the knowledge advantage, whether they really do or not, just because I've been granted the title, and they lose that being a student element of them, the way we should all keep it throughout life. And so I always say I'd rather be ignorant and not know, because at least if I embrace being a student, I can move into a position of knowing. If I'm arrogant and I say, no, I don't need to know, because I'm very much shielding myself from needing the help. And I think this plays into the mindset and the mental health that we were just hearing about, is that ultimately you think you don't need help, but really it's that, A, you don't know you're in a safe space to actually take on that help. And it's the ego that's creeping in and not allowing you to remove yourself from your own way to be able to accept it. So admittance is very big. And finally, action. So staying self-aware, being able to admit you need help. And who needs help? Everybody needs help. Everybody can improve, period, always. So ultimately, finally, the third thing, take action. You heard me say this: winning is uphill. I tell the students this, when we have a type rating, just so you know, I'll give you some quick insight. It's basically about $34,000 or so for a 737 or an A320 type rating. We split that between 2 students, so each one is paying approximately $17,000. It's an 18-day footprint, 6 days of ground school, 4 days in a fixed-base sim, 7 days in a motion simulator. You come out of there with a 737 type rating or an A320 type rating, and that's 18 days of training footprint, throw in a few days off. It's roughly about a month you can expect. So on day 1, I usually go meet with the new classes that come through, and I tell them, There's effectively three things you need to succeed in this type rating course, right? Number one is intentionality. What does that mean? We're going to help you, but we can't helicopter you to success. You can't slide your way to success. It's really uphill. And you have to be properly equipped, which essentially means if I'm going to climb a mountain, I can tell you I'm definitely not going to do it in Vans. These are skateboarding shoes, okay? I'm going to need the proper equipment to do so. And hopefully you as a school, as an organization, are equipping them with that. And the only way you do that is by equipping yourself first, by properly leading yourself. So you lead yourself, you equip yourself to go out and have so you can give to the students, right? So I tell them, okay, we're going to properly equip you, and ultimately you need a team, because as the challenge elevates, so does the need for a team will also escalate as well. And ultimately, when we're looking to cram type rating information, which is basically taking an aircraft that took 20 years to build and develop, they cram it into an FCOM, 20,000 pages, and expect you to put it in your head in 20 days and have success on your check ride and your oral, right? And so how do we really do that? You need a team to do it. And ultimately, us at the Academy, we work to be their team in their process of the 20 days that they're there for their initial training. Focus energy. I put this image here of a forest, if you will. And I like to use the analogy of an axe. With anything you're trying to accomplish, if you go out and you axe one tree, and then the next day you get up and you axe another tree a little bit, and the next day you get up and you axe another tree a little bit, ultimately none of the trees are really ever going to come down. You just end up with a bunch of trees with a bunch of nicks in them, from all your days of axing, right? And so it's not until you pick one and stick to it, and hit it in the same place every single day. This is the intentionality aspect of it, where finally it's going to end up coming down. One Step Prep, the very name One Step came to life because when people would ask, how do I take all this information for a type rating? It's simple. One step at a time. It's just one step at a time. We're going to start with systems. We're going to develop it into memory items and limitations, and then we're going to go into your flows and the procedures and the callouts, how to use a QRH, how to conduct ECAM actions. But all these things cannot obviously be done at once. It's got to be done one step at a time, and ultimately that very much worked its way into the name. But you can apply that to anything. How do you develop a physique that looks pleasing aesthetically to the eye? You don't do all your body parts in one day. When I get back to the gym on Monday, we're doing one body part, which is going to be back, followed by this Tuesday is going to be chest, etc., and so on and so forth. So to try to cram everything together and not have focus energy ultimately is not going to lead you to the place you're looking for in terms of getting a result. Solution-oriented. In interviews, when I do interviews over at Spirit, what traits are we looking for? A lot of times we'll all hear this in some of the meetings we do before. And I like to say solution-oriented mindsets. A lot of times what we see, personnel see, is problems. Everybody sees a problem. To me, the problems equal opportunities. And to have a solution-oriented person, honestly, is far and few. Somebody who actually sees a problem and says, wow, that's an opportunity. A lot of times I hear with the real estate, I don't want to do the real estate thing because we'll have tenants, termites, and toilets, and I don't want to get called with all the problems, And so, well, that's great. I want the problems. Why do I want the problem? Problem equals opportunity. Problem means there's somebody there paying, which means there's an opportunity to serve somebody, and ultimately, fortunately, in a capitalistic world, we're going to get rewarded accordingly for that, right? So solution-oriented mindset is very much a focal point when developing a place of mental fortitude. You can't criticize and create at the same time. This is why I don't really look too much at competitors. I don't talk down, they're doing this, they're doing that. Their reviews are, 2 stars and extra. I don't really get too caught up in any of that because, again, how can you criticize and really create at the same time? I very much like to focus on collaborating, and the collaboration mindset really comes from focusing in on you and honing in on your own skill set, I believe, to better go out and serve ultimately your clients, which are our students. Okay, mental limitations. This is my very beautifully done Camaro that has plenty of mods done to it. And despite the fact that it creates over 500 horsepower, it has a governor on it. How many of you know what a governor is on a car? Yeah. So since the 90s, these governors, mostly they'll limit a speed to say 112 miles per hour, So you're flooring the thing. It's a 6-speed, makes over 500 horses, and then it gets stuck at 112, right? But you could effectively take the governor off and then the sky's the limit, right? It's however much power it can produce to the wheel, you're off to the races, and it can far go exceeding 112 miles per hour. And so, why do I put that up there? Well, because I think a lot of times our minds have these governors. And it'd be great, I think, if rather than having dental floss, we had mental floss to just kind of clean up some of these limitations that we have mentally in our mind. Because a lot of times we get stuck at this 112 mile per hour mark when you really could actually do far more, and you can stretch to whatever your imagination allows you to do. I think it would have been very easy for me at 24 to say, yeah, I'm here. I became an airline pilot. It's what I always wanted to do, and I upgrade, and okay, now I'm here. And for some, that's perfectly okay. But I think there's far more impact that I'm able to have now, having adopted a mindset of, I want to go beyond just something that's self-serving of flying an airplane, and open up an academy where we're serving mostly foreign students that are looking to come and convert their licenses into FAA ATP licenses. So it's just how far and how many people do you want to serve? You want to make $1 billion, as John and Martha so eloquently put, come up with a solution for 1 billion plus people. And ultimately that's what we aim to do, but you can't have a mental limitation in place to do that. Small wins are big wins, so momentum is crucial. A train that's stopped is very much difficult to get moving. A jet, I can tell you, an A320 loaded up with fuel, it takes about 50% N1, maybe 45 to get the thing rolling. That's a considerable amount of thrust. I mean, if you're in an alley area, you probably don't want to put anywhere near more than that. You can cause damage potentially to personnel and equipment behind you. But what's interesting is once you're rolling. We effectively just use breakaway power. We get going, we pull the power to idle, and then we just coast using momentum. And this is basically true with anything in life. Once your wins start to compound, and then before you know it, exponentially, you're doing more and more and more and more. And so having these small wins will finally accumulate into larger wins. Getting up and doing the 30 minutes of cardio that you didn't really want to do, if you're able to do that consistently over a 16-week period, I can tell you definitively from experience, you're going to get shredded. It will happen over time, assuming you can stick to the diet and not get on a cruise ship for 5 days. Okay, so they also, obviously these small wins build confidence. It builds self-respect. You respect yourself. A lot of times when I see personnel not living by the golden rule of treating others the way they want to be treated, they're projecting their own disgust and dissatisfaction in themselves. So that's why I say lead yourself well, so that what you put out into the world is ultimately a good self-reflection of what you feel internally. And if you feel good about yourself because you lead yourself well, these small wins are going to compound into larger wins. 5 simple steps. This will be basically the last of it. I'll turn the mic over. But remain a student. Be green and growing, not ripe and rotten. Even the best of instructors. I did an interview prep for somebody who flies over at EasyJet, and he said, they're going to interview me for this instructor position at EasyJet. And they're going to ask, what do I think is a character trait of a great instructor? And I said, I think a character trait of a good human being, period, is to remain a student, which essentially means realize you are always deficient somewhere. And it is in recognizing that you can continue to grow. So staying green and growing, remaining a student. Setting measurable targets. Notice I didn't say setting attainable targets. Obviously having an attainable target is important, but setting something that you can actually measure is also very important, because where there's measurement, there's progress. And recognize that in personal development, you are the thing being measured. So you might lie to yourself. Just realize that is very much a possibility in the realm of personal development. Plant daily, which is the intentionality portion. Give more than you take and live lightly. What is it? What do I mean by live lightly? I don't want anybody to miss this. What I mean by living lightly is the following. I love this venue as a business conference venue. I can tell you, if we do this again next year, we're definitely coming on a cruise ship next year for the venue. I know that some personnel will say, "Oh, it's a business event, and on a cruise ship there's so much fun activity going on." Yeah, it's okay to have fun. I think it's okay to have fun. We're all human beings that want to have fun. And with that being said, when I go to WATS, for example, which is a World Aviation Training Symposium, we're going in April of next year. It's a massive event. Boeing is there, Airbus is there. It's this huge event. They've got all the cookies and the carbs. They don't have the flow rider. I'm sorry, and it's a great event, but they don't have the ice skating rink in the Quest game, But the point I'm getting to is that even the technology that's there, okay, they have the virtual reality and the AI and the CBTs and everything that is being pushed is more and more digitalization, less and less human touch, which is why the banner, which is that one that we're going to take next year to Watts, says FAA approved training with the human touch. The more we get into a digital world, I think the more valuable it will be to actually have human touch. And this really, in my experience, we'll do a quick survey. How many of you, let's say you call your bank, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, whoever, you call them and you need to speak to someone. So you're listening to on the call and you're like, hey, press 1 for accounting, press 2 to check balances, press 3 for such and such. So sometimes you press it goes to a recording. So now you call back, you press a number that doesn't even apply to you just to see if you can talk to somebody. How many have you done that? Okay, so now they're getting smart and they say, well, you know what, we'll put an AI voice because it sounds like a human being. But then you realize, maybe you might get tricked at first. You're like, oh, you start actually talking to the robot, right? Hi, this is Pam from Wells Fargo. Hey, Pam, how's it going? Right? It's like, okay. And then before you know it, you're telling them a life story, and then you realize they ask you something off topic, and you're like, man, I'm talking to a robot the whole time. Right or wrong? Yeah, okay. So then you get annoyed, and you're like, I want to talk to a person, not a make-believe person, because ultimately, souls want to connect with souls, not with a robot. And we are moving away from that, I see, unfortunately, through the advent of CBT. And I think don't get me wrong, I think there's a place in virtual reality for you to sit there with one of these MetaQuest headsets, and I can take you through an A320 or a 737 cockpit and walk you through what a flow looks like. But you need someone there to walk you through it. In my opinion, I think it very much goes very far when you have somebody there who's actually walking you through it. So that's that human touch portion. So live lightly. Live lightly means have fun. It's okay to have fun. Don't worry. It's not like any of us are making it off of planet Earth alive anyways. Okay? It's okay to go ride the flow rider. So I very much appreciate your time. And hopefully what we get out of this is to live intentionally, to be green and growing, to be a student, to live and love lightly, and hopefully go out and ultimately just serve others is ultimately the message I would say. And in doing so, you're going to find that you'll build your own mental fortress. You'll lead yourself well to lead others well. You'll serve others well. And that'll be more than enough to be in a place of good mental health. All right? Thank you all very much. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Joe.